Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special series, Ayahuasca Gnosis, #1, Overcoming Fear. Now, I was talking to somebody on the Ayahuasca forum over on Facebook, and they posted something very interesting. Of course, we're not going to name their names or anything like that, because this isn't what this is about, but I find inspiration all over the place. And having been on such a long journey, I really understand multiple different perspectives here. And I thought that overcoming fear might be a great topic to start this new ayahuasca journey series on. I don't know how many more of these are we going to do, because we've just been bombarding everybody with shows. If you've missed some of our recent shows, you can find them at patreon.com/BTV Tribe, of course. But if you tune in live, you'll always be able to get the full live show. But in this particular case, a young lady posted on the Ayahuasca forum, I might have an opportunity to participate in my first ceremony in Peru. I'm very excited. I've been waiting a long time for this opportunity. The problem is I grew up with a phobia of bugs. I've gotten over most of it and actually appreciate most bugs now, except for roaches. Who doesn't like roaches? I hate roaches. I grew up in Houston, Texas, with not only roaches, but flying roaches. These things will fly at you. They are horrific. Big or small. I know most ceremonies are outdoor during the night. I have anxiety about this because I don't want to miss the opportunity or have it ruined. Does anybody have any advice? My advice was very simple, which is any type of fear will result in a bad time. Think it through. Why are you afraid of bugs? You're 1,000 times bigger than them, and you can squash them. Shouldn't they be afraid? To which there was a little bit of an exchange, which then prompted a show about fear and overcoming fear. And as many of you know, here at Beyond the Veil, we have worked for many, many, many years, two and a half decades, to overcome the fear, get down into the inner depths of the ayahuasca gnosis, even having ceremonies in the sarcophagus of the Great Pyramid, just me and my wife by ourselves in the Temple of Chepsut, in the Temple of Isis in the middle of the night. No fear whatsoever. And I want to see other people get to that point too. Because at the end of the day, there is nothing to fear whatsoever. The only thing that there is to fear is yourself and your own consciousness. And that's what it's all about, is divesting the consciousness from all the fear. And first of all, addressing why that fear exists within the consciousness. So let's get into it.
The sky so far away tonight, but I can't lose this one. Get a pride of the falling night. Thought that I was fit to fight for us to be. You gave me life for loving me. Tell me, where did we go so wrong?
Raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis. From Beyond the Veil.
From the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio, and I will be once again taking you beyond the veil. We're trying to get our sleep pattern back in order. We have been sleeping all day and doing shows all night, and we're trying to flip that so we can get back into normal life. And so hopefully we're going to be able to stay up all day. Danny, our dear friend in the chat room, you really need to come out here to Las Vegas and party with us, Danny. I mean, seriously. But we might turn you into a night owl just like us when you're here. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. She said that I might be going to sleep because didn't we just do a show just a few hours ago?
Literally, yes. And I am Cherie Gio. I'm joined by Cherie Gio, as always. Glad to be here tonight, this morning.
I was just about to get to you.
I know.
I am so sorry. Danny
all
said she
right.
was going to bed. I thought I'll tell her good night real quick.
Oh, no, she's going to bed already?
Yes, and then introduce my lovely wife and co-pilot and twin flame, Mrs. Geo, as
I thought you were so
always
excited about.
do.
I thought you were so excited about the topic at hand that you had just forgotten to mention that I was
would
here,
never forget to mention my twin flame, who has been with me on the journey through thick and thin and everything like that. So the topic of fear. Fear is something that each and every one of us is programmed with to a certain degree. And there is a healthy level of fear.
It's
as I've said before.
necessary.
You know, if you're walking down a cliff and you have the potential of falling off, there are those little, chemical things that happen within the body that tell you, hey, be careful, don't fall off this cliff. But then we have other fears. Other fears that we find ourselves to be programmed with through our experiences here in the Matrix, through life, and some of these fears turn into phobia. Some of these fears can actually be a result of past life fears because of something that happened in a past life. We have heard reports of many children coming back and remembering their past lives. One in particular that sticks out, that he remembered being a fighter pilot,
yeah.
in World War II, and he was able to name his whole battalion. They came and visited him, and he was telling them things that only that other person would know. And by the end of it, all these 75, 80-year-old men were like, yeah, this is the guy reincarnated. There was another story that I heard out of, I want to say Thailand, one of those areas like that, where a kid came back and remembered who murdered him, took them to the body, and the guy wound up confessing for murdering that person.
That's right.
And that was a result of the reincarnation. So reincarnation is very real. Carrying traumas from one life to another is very real. And sometimes, like, you had experience with some of your family members when they were babies, they were deathly afraid of water. Mm-hmm. And being deathly afraid of water like that for absolutely no reason in this incarnation makes me wonder if maybe they drowned in a previous life.
Yeah.
And so we bring those fears along with us.
Right.
Other fears are programmed within us through experiences. In this particular young lady's case, she had a fear of bugs. The question is, why is there fear of bugs? Is there some kind of trauma that happened previously in life that caused a fear of bugs? I remember when I was about 10 years old, I grew up not in a very good condition. We lived in a middle-class neighborhood, but my father was so cheap that he cut off the exterminator company. And we started to get bugs. We started to get flying cockroaches when he'd walk to the door. And I remember sitting in the living room when I was like 10 years old, watching TV. We didn't even have cable back then because my dad was so cheap. And we had a cockroach fall like right on my head. And yeah.
I don't do roaches.
Roaches
sorry.
are just the most disgusting things in the world. But why? Why are they so disgusting? Like, they root through shit. They carry diseases. They do all that, right?
Yeah.
Some of them actually bite, too.
That's why we were afraid of rats for the same reason. They carry disease.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I've never been bit by a roach or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've shared this story before where I had the snake and I was feeding it baby mice. And after about 2 or 3 times, I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't bring myself to put an animal inside of a cage to be eaten by another animal. And this thing was so sweet. And when it curled up next to the snake, and the snake tried to eat it, and it couldn't. And it went and curled up next to the snake again. And the snake tried to eat it again. And after the 3rd time, I couldn't take it anymore. I gave the snake away to a friend, and I wound up keeping the rat as a pet, and then I wound up letting him go. And from that point, I started to find an appreciation for rats. They're really smart. They have a nervous system, a central nervous system, just like we do. They're very loving, but still, when they crawl on you, you still get a little bit of the creepy crawlies. I mean, weren't we playing with a pet rat at one point? And I was like, here, play with it, play with it.
Yeah,
You're like, no, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to touch it. But it was like, a pet rat that was somebody's pet. It didn't have any diseases, didn't run through trash or, anything like that. But we still have this, I guess, genetic memory of the plague. And so we have this natural fear of rats.
In 1348, it wiped out half of Europe. The Black Death wiped out half of Europe in 1348 and 1349. And we remember that. Genetically, we remember that. And so when we are approached by this creature, no matter what, I mean, it's just our biological inclination to recoil from it or try to hurt it, to react in a fight or flight response when we see a rat.
That's key. Fight or flight response.
I was just about to
want
get
to touch
into,
upon that
yeah.
here in just a second, but I want to make one more example. There are some circumstances in the world that are purposefully made for us to back away from. I think roaches are part of them. Maggots are another one, because that is showing death. There's something dying there, and it's a natural instinct. Stay away from whatever it is that's dying, or dead, I should say, and the maggots have started to eat it because that's a recipe for disease and things like that. So it's a safety mechanism built inside of us. But when it comes to a fear of bugs, where does this fear of bugs come from?
I am about to go incredibly deep down the rabbit hole on this one, and I just discovered it in an experience I had in the last couple of days. And what I realized is that vermin of any type, parasites of any type, bugs, these things are a hive mind. They really are. They act as a hive mind, and when they're acting all in unison, they are they eat things. That's whenever they're attacking you and biting you and hurting you and stuff like that. That's why we're afraid of them on a physical level. On a spiritual level, we have things called astral parasites and astral bugs that we become infected with over time and over experiences that are traumatic, or that they leave an imprint on us, and we get these astral parasites inside of us that feed on the pain of that and also the fear of it ever happening again. And the fear feeds these parasites. And so when we are exposed to something like ayahuasca, something that brings all of these things up to the surface. All the astral parasites that have been feeding on you come to the surface because there's something interesting about light. What does it do to what does UV light do to bacteria and viruses?
It kills them.
Exactly.
And when you turn on a light, the roaches scatter. Yeah.
And ayahuasca is light.
I want to get into the astral parasites here in just a second, but I want to hit on what you just said earlier,
about
which
fear.
is the fight or flight response, because I want to start it from a physical
Oh, okay.
and then go into the spiritual.
Yeah.
So the physical fight or flight response, I'm sure everybody's aware of this, but let me hear it in your words first.
Okay, so when there's a legitimate threat in front of you, let's say there's a tiger that's escaped the zoo and it's in the middle of the street and it's attacking someone right in front of you. If you are an NPC consciousness, you don't have a choice. It's fight or flight. You either lunge to try to attack the tiger back, to get it away from people, or you run the hell away. If you're an organic consciousness, you have a choice. You can choose the fight or flight response, which unfortunately, because we're in an NPC kind of avatar, that's what we tend to do if we're not acting from a higher consciousness perspective. But if we're acting from a higher consciousness perspective on a regular basis, and we're just at a higher frequency altogether, when we're coming across situations where there's a legitimate threat, we get to choose what we do in that case. Is there some way that I can distract the tiger? Is there some way that I can get out of the situation without abandoning my fellow human being who is being eaten by this tiger? Is there a way that I can save us both? Organic consciousness has that ability to do that.
If you don't mind, I'd like to try to keep this particular series a little more broader. And for people who not necessarily...
About fear?
Yeah, not necessarily have been following along with the Beyond the Veil journey.
Oh, okay.
So if we can we might break down NPC and organic consciousness a little bit later, but let's just try to keep it kind of focused on just consciousness as a whole.
Okay, the fight or flight response is you're either going to, like I said, attack whatever's attacking you, or you're going to run away from it. And if there's a situation where you can, I don't know where you want me to take this, actually, because I'm kind of confused.
Okay, so just fight or flight without even mentioning NPC or organic.
The fight or flight response is triggered by fear, and fear produces noradrenaline, and you get an adrenaline rush. And for people that have had experiences where they have not been able to escape from that situation and they've been hurt, they'll usually just run away from it and run away from even trying to fight whatever that is, because they don't have the confidence in themselves to be able to escape a situation that they haven't escaped before. But if you have the ability to say, well, maybe I can fight this, the fight or flight response gives you the adrenaline rush that you need to fight back against this fear. And you don't have to have a fight or flight response as a knee-jerk reaction if you understand that what you're really fighting is inside of you. It's not something external, because really the battle that you're fighting is an internal battle.
Very true, very true. Unfortunately, I don't have a coin in front of me unless you have one handy, but in this digital age, we don't have coins available. But so I do have an aspirin with me, though. So we have an aspirin, right?
Okay.
We have two sides of the aspirin. We have the fight or flight, or we have the fight or we have the flight, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are two sides to the coin, two sides to the aspirin, for example. But there's a third side of the coin too that not very many people realize, and that's the point, in my opinion, that we want to tap into. We want to override that fight or flight response, and we want to get to a point to where we're thinking critically about situations, which is what my first advice to the young lady was. Number one, why are you afraid of bugs? You're 1,000 times bigger than they are. You can squash them just like that. They should be afraid of you. So the first question to ask is, why is that fear there? The second question is, well, it's not really a question, but it's more of a philosophy. It's putting things into a perspective. So when it comes to a fear of bugs, for example, you put it into a perspective of okay, this is a small little thing that for some reason I have this internal fear of. But in reality, when I look at it from a third person perspective, remove myself from my consciousness, not from my consciousness, from my body, observe it from a third person. Let's say you're looking at two humans, at one human and one bug. You can see the human can outpower the bug very, very, very easily. So where does this fear come from? This fear comes from the mind. It comes from some kind of chemical release that happens in the brain, as you said, the fight or flight response. So number one is to recognize that fight or flight response. And number two, start to harness that fight or flight response. So now you control that fight or flight response. And rather than just responding, then you start to evaluate the situation and act upon the situation by removing yourself from your emotional attachments to whatever that trauma or even natural fear has been programmed within you. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And maybe the best word for that is, instead of reacting, responding.
Not acting.
Not acting.
Inaction.
Instead of reacting to things. Because reaction is that can be that's just a biological knee-jerk reaction. A reaction is something that just, something happens, and as a consequence something else happens. And you don't have to be a robot like that. You can make the choice to step back and logically evaluate a situation.
Exactly. So when we logically evaluate these kind of situations, then we can start to better understand them. Mm-hmm. And when we better understand them, then we better understand ourselves and our own power that we have within us.
Right.
Now, if you've got a guy pointing a gun at you, that's a completely different situation. Your flight or fight response might kick in. But is it beneficial to give in to your fight or flight response? I mean, think about this. You've got somebody with a gun drawn to you, your fight or flight response kicks in. So you're automatically going to either attack him or you're going to run away from him. But what if you could strategically evaluate the situation by removing that fear out of your element and then make the right, the best possible action that there is? And people go through training for this, self-defense courses, all kinds of things like that. But it's really really simple, in my opinion. You charge a guy with a gun and you run from a guy with a knife. And if you remember those principles, you're more likely to get away from the situation, because a guy with pointed a gun at you is going to be able to fire at you no matter how far you're running. A guy with a knife is going to have to chase you down.
Right.
So you charge a guy with a gun, you run from a guy with a knife. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if you are trained enough to be able to handle that situation, you can actually disarm that guy.
Right.
Now, these are extreme circumstances. We're not talking, this goes beyond phobia, and this goes to basically just regular everyday fear.
Right. That is natural organic
frequency
fear.
Has a lot to do with it.
Has everything to do with it.
So in the Amazon, we've had Peter Gorman on, we've had Dennis McKenna on, we've had Joe Rogan on, we've had many different ayahuasqueros and people really deep in the ayahuasca community, DMT community. They've shared similar stories. Peter Gorman, for example, he would drink ayahuasca and trek through the Amazon. And as he's trekking through the Amazon, while he was on that frequency of ayahuasca, it was almost as if nature itself started to recognize the frequency and the energy, and he wasn't attacked by any panthers. He wasn't attacked by anything. I think he told us a story about stepping on a poisonous snake, and the snake didn't even bite him because he could feel the frequency. He can feel what he was feeling inside. Now, you look at any animal out there. Let's take a Chihuahua, okay? We had little Chihuahuas, and these little guys were vicious. They wouldn't bite, but oh my God, they were chick magnets. This was before we met, obviously. I had them for 13 years, and they passed away about 5 years ago. You and I have been together for 13 years. So I had them for a good 4 or 5 years before we met. They were chick magnets. But every time a pretty girl would come up to say hello, they would rah, 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 and chase them away. And I'm like, guys, why are you doing this to me? This is not fair.
This is the opposite of why I got you.
I have a beautiful woman coming up to me wanting to pet you guys because you guys are so cute, and you're acting like little monsters.
Yeah.
It's not fair. But it's frequency and it's energy. And in the case of the Chihuahuas, they're just Chihuahuas. But when you really think about it, why should you be afraid of a Chihuahua? A Chihuahua is a tiny little thing. If the thing bites you, number one, you are so large that even if it bites you, it's not going to do any kind of damage whatsoever.
No, not
so
permanently.
you might get a cut, you might get something like that.
Yeah.
You have the ability to stomp that Chihuahua out and completely annihilate
kill it if you
Most people won't, though. Most people would rather take a bite from a Chihuahua because they have the perspective. This is a tiny little dog, and sure, it's barking at me. But I'm not the type of person that's going to hurt a small animal like that. Now, you take another situation with the same Chihuahua, and you approach it, and it's barking at you, and you approach it and go, oh, look at you, how cute. Oh, you think you're so tough, aren't you? Oh, you're just the toughest little Chihuahua in the world. Oh, you are so tough. Look how tough you are. And you go and you pet it and everything like that. And I've had cases where I've had French Chihuahuas reacting like that to me. Then they're cuddling in my lap and I'm scratching their bellies because I didn't approach them with a fear. It's like they can feel the frequency. They can feel the fear frequency inside of you. And when you're radiating that fear frequency, then you actually start to attract those things that want to feed upon that fear frequency.
Right.
You attract the things that you're fearful of. And we even manifest this in our own day-to-day life. I mean, think about this. You're driving down the street and you're worried. Oh, I know I'm going to get pulled over. 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 And then, of course, you get pulled over. And that's exactly what happens. But you drive down the street and you go, I'm not going to get pulled over. I'm not going to get pulled over. I'm not going to go. And that cop, whoop, right around. We've had this happen before. Remember? We're driving down the street. We have a cop right behind us. He's been tailing us. We're not inebriated, not by any means, because we would never, ever, ever drive like that. Not at all. We always wear our seatbelts. We're always very good citizens, and we follow the law to the letter.
Yep.
However, we were driving, and there was a cop behind us, and we were thinking, oh, man, is he following us? And I kept saying over and over again, he's not following us. He is going to go right around us. And I was willing him to go right around us. And he followed us for a good 2 or 3 miles right behind us, like he was looking up license plates and doing all kinds of stuff like that. And I said, I am not going to be pulled over today. And what happens? He turns his lights on. And I'm thinking, oh, there we go. We're getting pulled over. Nope, we're not going to get pulled over. We're not going to get pulled over. I pull over to the side. He speeds up ahead of me because I was going, quote unquote, too slow for him. Because I was doing the speed limit and he wanted to do twice the speed limit with no cause whatsoever.
Of course.
But I think if I would have had the mentality of, oh, I'm freaking out. Because I remember this as a kid. Every time I would see a cop as a kid, I didn't know any better. 15, I got my driver's license at 15. So 15 years old, I'd see a cop. All of a sudden, everybody would start freaking out, putting their seatbelts on, putting their weed away, doing this, doing that, etc. And that draws the attention. And that's on a physical level, drawing the attention. Then it draws the attention of that. And then you wind up manifesting whatever it is that you are afraid of.
Exactly.
I can share 2 instances with Shuri and I. And this is just for new listeners out there. I had an MRI that had metastatic disease, stage 4 cancer. And they wanted to send me to an oncologist and all kinds of stuff like that. And I said, I don't have stage 4 cancer. That is effing stupid. Those were my words. We were sitting in the parking lot, remember? And I'm reading my MRI and I'm like, yeah, it says something about metastatic disease. And you're like, baby.
Do what?
Yeah. And she looks at it and she starts crying. And I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? And she's like, baby, it's stage 4 cancer. And I was like, psh, I don't have stage 4 cancer. I'm not letting that into my reality. That's ridiculous. After a series of tests, the doctors came back and said it was probably a misreading of the MRI. Mm-hmm. Likewise, you have a tumor in your stomach.
Yeah,
and they are freaking out. We got to do biopsies. We got to do this. We got to do that. And I'm glad that they at least took the steps, because you cut into a cancer tumor, you spread the cancer immediately. If it is a cancerous tumor, it's a different way of extracting the tumor, because you don't want to cut into it. You want to cut around it and remove it so it doesn't spread.
Right.
They did several biopsies, and you were freaking out. And I thought that you were getting ready to go home. Like, seriously, because of how worried you were when it came to the cancer. And you and I sat down and we decided, is it time for you to go home? And if it's time for you to go home, we both were coming to peace with that idea that it's time for you to go home. I mean, we understand so much the nature of this reality that there literally is no fear whatsoever. And I'll elaborate on that even more a little bit further in the broadcast, because just to give you a quick synopsis, when you're walking your higher path, I really truly believe that you are invincible. Now, that's when you're walking your higher path. If you're not walking your higher path and you take a detour, then yeah, you're susceptible to whatever. But if you're walking your higher path, you are invincible, because you're walking your higher path and you're getting your soul's mission accomplished. Now, once we have that chat, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot here. It looks like I'm putting you on the spot. But we sat down and I said, sweetie, you need to make up your mind. Do you want cancer or not? If it's time for you to go home, I understand, and I will support you all the way through, and I'll be with you until the very end. But I need you to make up your mind. I can't make up your mind for you. And in that ayahuasca experience, you said, I do not want cancer. I am not accepting that in my reality. How many biopsies did they do?
I think 4 total.
4 total biopsies.
Yeah.
The doctors were amazed, because not a single one of them came back positive.
Well, I mean, that just goes to show.
I think it goes to show mind over matter. And then what happened after that? Okay? 4 months ago, you still haven't had your surgeries. 4 months ago, with all due respect, I don't mean to be critical of you, but you were looking pretty bad. After that, after you made that conscious choice, you were looking gorgeous. I mean, you're always gorgeous to me. You always are. But I've seen you walking on a cane, hunched over, very difficult to move, not wanting to do shows, not wanting to get out of bed because of so much pain and all of this. And what we do last weekend, I went and I did a DJ set. We partied all night. We had great sex.
Oh, the party just ended a few hours ago.
We're still recovering. You dressed up in this sexy lingerie, and I treated you like a goddess.
Aww.
And I can tell it revived your energy. But I had to wait for you to get to that point where you came back to that point of understanding the goddess within yourself and radiating that before I was able to do that. So please don't think that I put you on the spot at all. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to illustrate the power that we have within us to overcome any fear. And that's by gnosis of self.
It's a combination of gnosis of self, and this is what, and forgive me for, putting the entire world on the spot right now, but I think this is where Aleister Crowley's thing about will comes in. It was not God or Jesus or a shaman or a healer or an energy healer or anybody like that brought me to where I am now from that place. That was a horrible place to be. And I'm so sorry that you had to be there with me in that place, because when one of us is in that place, the other one is too.
Why are you sorry?
You
have no reason to be sorry. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to have your back. You're here to have my back.
I'm sorry that you had to go.
You should be sorry if you didn't have my back.
Aww.
In any time. But you've always had my back. You have nothing to be sorry about. We are here together on this journey. And anything that's happening to your physical avatar, and for any new listeners out there, Shuri has EDS, which is a connective tissue disorder.
Yeah.
And despite this, we trekked through the pyramids. We have been doing this for 13 years here at Beyond the Veil.
I've had just as many surgeries as the years that we've been together.
Yeah, seriously. We've gone through shit.
Yeah.
And I don't regret a single part of it.
Yeah.
I am honored to be there. Do you know what pisses me off? Is when you don't include me. When you're going through some shit and you don't come to me for comfort. And I see you in bed crying and screaming, and I'm in the other room, oblivious, and I walk in and I'm like, what's going on? And you're like, I'm in so much horrendous pain right now. And I'm like, well, why aren't you coming to me as your twin flame to comfort you? If you don't mind me saying it, no.
That's what I'm feeling is
it hurts to be
excluded
from it.
I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
Before the show, what'd you do?
I came and asked you for help.
And then what happened?
We ended up doing a show.
See? That's what we're here for. We're here for each other like that. We're here for our tribe like that. This is why we unite here at Beyond the Veil. This is why we do shows about overcoming fear. Because we have the power inside of us to manifest our own reality. And fears are so many different aspects of this reality. And sometimes fear is fun. It's fun. Like, we almost were kidnapped twice in Egypt. And I was just telling a story on the last show where we were staying in Giza, and Mrs. Geo insisted
he risked life and limb
midnight that she was hungry and she could not wait until the morning, and Giza is like a ghetto. And I trekked through Giza. It was only about a quarter mile, maybe half a mile away, but it's in the roughest part of Giza.
Oh, come on. This is after enduring 3 days of traveling.
And I am at Pizza Hut on the second floor, and these guys are trying to pull me into a van, and I'm posting on Facebook, hey, let Cherie know I'm about to be kidnapped. But here's what happened. I knew what was going on because it was one of the guys that we had gotten into it with earlier. I mean, we didn't get into it with him earlier, but he was trying to sell a bunch of stuff, and I told him I'm not interested in any of this. And he was really, really, really persistent.
He was really insistent.
And I basically told him to fuck off without telling him to fuck off.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really bothering me because I was there to experience our sacred sites.
Yeah,
and he was hounding me.
He was really running it.
So when I saw him later at that Pizza Hut, and he was talking to the manager, and you walk up the stairs to this Pizza Hut, and you can't get out. The staircase is the only way out. He's at the staircase. He's talking to the manager in Arabic. They're both looking at me, and I know something's going on. I'm staring out the window. I could see the Sphinx. I'm staring out the window. I see a white van pull up. I know something's about to go down. I grabbed a butter knife, which was the only weapon that I could find, and headed underneath the pizza box. And I just said, you know what? I've got no other choice but to go down here and face it. Let me go down here and just face it. Why not? You know, better to face one's destiny than postpone it and cower from it. I walked downstairs, and I knew as soon as I walked downstairs, hey, what are you doing? 3 guys jumped me. And the thing is, they weren't very good in what they were doing. You know, I mean,
they weren't
very
agile.
Yeah. And I think they kind of underestimated me.
Underestimated the
There
American.
wasn't too much of a back and forth. I actually had a chance to put the pizza down before confronting them. They were trying to talk me into stepping closer to their van, and then I knew once I stepped closer to their van, they were going to push me into the van. Boom, that's it. I would have been gone. But I said, no, I'm gonna go down here and I'm gonna face it. And luckily, the Airbnb guy happened to show up right around that time when a physical altercation was just beginning. So I brought Mrs. Gio her pizza, and she didn't even eat it. And I'm like, I risked my life to get this for you. But my point is, though, that I was strategic in checking this out. I didn't panic. All I did was post on Facebook, because I had no cell phone access. Hey, get a hold of Cherie. Get a hold of the Airbnb guy. I'm in trouble. I'm stuck at the top level of the Pizza Hut across from the Sphinx. And I knew I needed to stay, number one, very calm. I needed to think like a chess player. I needed to think like a soldier. I needed to remove any fear, because if I fell into that fight or flight response, one of 2 things would have happened. Either A, I would have engaged in a fight, which I probably would have lost and gotten thrown in a van, or B, I would have ran and they would have ran after me and threw me in the van, one or the other. I had to strategically think about what my moves were. Timing needed to be right, and I needed to let enough time elapse between the time I sent out the Facebook messages and not knowing, just kind of psychically, that you were on it and you were having the Airbnb guy come over there and meet us. And the thing is, when you have an Arabic guy coming over there, they're going to break everything up. They're not going to pull any shit around any of the locals.
Right. The locals will protect
especially
you.
this guy, because he rents out his Airbnb all the time. So he's somebody known in the community.
And he needs to he needs to get good reviews.
Well, no, it's not just that.
I mean, he needs to protect his people.
He's somebody that is known there.
Yeah.
So he knows the guys that did this.
Yeah.
You know, and so they didn't know that we were connected, but, you know, these guys just thought I was just some tourist who wouldn't be missed.
When he showed up, they knew that they needed to leave.
So we navigated that situation, right? We almost were kidnapped again when we were in Aswan, and the taxi driver's cousin wanted to take us to a wedding, and we drove around, and I knew instinctively that they didn't know where they were going. I asked the guy, first of all, I was feeling our questions, you know, oh, so congratulations on the wedding. He's like, what wedding? And I'm like, oh, I thought you said we were going to a wedding. And the taxi driver said, no, that's another friend. No, we're going to take you guys out to eat somewhere nice. And I said, okay, cool. Let me let my people know in the States where we're going. What's the name of the restaurant? Well, first I asked him for the address, and he said, oh, I don't know the address. I said, oh, that's okay. I can look it up on Google. What's the name of the restaurant? We're already in the taxi cab at this point. Mm-hmm. He didn't know. And I noticed he was driving around the city looking for something, looking for a spot. And I had my bearings with me. I could tell where the Nile was. I can tell which direction the Nile was running. And I can tell that we were heading towards Sudan.
Right.
And the taxi driver was black.
We were going south.
The taxi driver was from Sudan. And, you know, just for a little backstory, he had been with us for several weeks. And what happened is his wife got into some trouble because he owed people money and they showed up at his house.
Yeah, I think they beat her up or something.
Yeah. And he said, and they told him, bring us the tourists.
Yeah.
And so that was his whole plot and scheme. And his cousin shows up, and his cousin is Arabic. And I'm like, well, you're Sudanese, he's Arabic, how are you guys cousins? You know, that didn't make any sense. But we're in the taxi cab. What did we do? Did we panic?
No.
No. If we would have panicked or showed fear, that would have let them on to know that something was going on.
And they wouldn't.
And they wouldn't have stopped the car.
They wouldn't have stopped the car and let us out.
When you said, I looked at you and I said, you feel funny about this? You said, yeah. We both very calmly, strategically looked at each other. And she said, you know, I really have to go to the bathroom. Would you mind pulling over? Oh, you said I have to throw up.
I feel like I need to throw up.
Would you mind pulling
earlier.
over? Because I don't want to throw up in your car. And the guy pulls over. And as soon as he does, boom, we both
bolted.
Get out of the car, walk across the street to a restaurant. And we were very strategic about it. But had we been in the fight or flight response, we would have either bolted, and that would have been a big sign, lock the doors. If we were like, you know, moving on the doors, like, I gotta get out of here.
Okay, let's get out of the car right now. Oh my God. Let me out of this car.
Right. Or if we decided to fight, well, I'm at a complete disadvantage, not because I couldn't take the guys on, but because I had to protect you on top of that.
A frail 90-pound woman with you.
They knew,
you know?
I mean, I imagine they would know that if they had a hold of you, I would pretty much do anything that they said.
Yeah, to get me back.
To keep you safe.
Right. Or to keep me safe. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 situations there, very life-threatening situations in a foreign country where getting past that fight or flight response was vital to the survival. But on top of that was a gnosis of self. The gnosis of self. And this comes after years and years and years of training with ayahuasca. But it also came from facing one's fears. And this is the message that I was trying to relate to this young lady. And I think she might be in the chat room. She is welcome to the show for the first time.
Fear's not bad.
Well, let me say this real quick. The fear of the bugs. The reason that my response was, why are you afraid of the bugs? They should be afraid of you, is not necessarily because it's ignoring any kind of potential previous trauma, because that was her reply. And I was not trying to downplay or disregard any kind of her trauma whatsoever. Rather, what I was trying to illustrate is to put things in perspective. Why are you afraid of those bugs? What could those bugs do to you that could hurt you? Nothing at all, period. So you shouldn't be afraid of them. When it comes to facing fears, I used to have a fear of heights. And I don't know why. I used to love roller coasters, but I was always secured in a roller coaster, you know? And so I never really had a problem with roller coasters. But I had a fear of heights. So what I decided to do is go skydiving. I said, you know what? I have a fear of heights. I'm going to go skydiving. I'm going to face this fear down. And believe me, I'll pull up a video here in a second, but believe me, while I was skydiving, my whole body on the inside was just jumping out of its skin. You know, as they're putting on the gear on me, as we're getting in the airplane, as we're doing that, my body's jumping out of the skin. But my mind was saying, no, I'm not giving into this fight or flight response. I'm not giving into it. I'm not giving into it. And jumping out of that airplane, I just did. It was like a feeling of, you know what? I know myself so much. And this was even before I started working with Aya. I mean, I've been doing psychedelics for 25 years, but I haven't really started working with Aya until 2008. And so, you know, there was still a little bit of gnosis of self, but there wasn't as much gnosis as there was now. But I wasn't afraid to die. And I jumped out of that airplane and I wanted to piss my pants. I wanted to shit my pants, but I didn't. I let go. I let go of all my emotions. I let go of all my fear, and I just let the ride just take me. And I landed completely and totally safe. And then I did it again and again and again and again. And I bungee jumped. You are one of the only people that I have ever taken bungee jumping who hasn't hesitated to jump off the bungee, the tower. I've taken so many people bungee jumping, and they all have to be coaxed down.
What would be
They
the
all
point?
have to be, come on, just do it. It's safe, and it's totally safe. I mean, the bungee cord, number one, is made up of tens of thousands of rubber bands, which means every single rubber band would have to snap.
Mm-hmm.
But number two, even if it does snap, there's a big air mat down there to catch you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing that can go wrong at all, period.
Right, exactly. And that's what was going through my mind too. Right off the bat, I logically assessed the situation and saw no reason to hesitate. And that's the difference between, using fear to your advantage, like when we were in Egypt, versus using, your logical, rational mind to overcome fear and not hesitate to leap when you can do that. It's a freeing thing. It's not something you even have to overcome at that point. Life can be an adventure that never ends.
That's true. Now, see, here's the thing. This isn't a path for everybody, but this is a path that I found that worked for me the best. And that path is, if you're afraid of something, go do it. Face it down. And when you face it down, you realize that there's nothing to be afraid of, that it's like all in your head. I mean, I'm not saying go out and do something stupid, like go get into a gunfight or something like that, but I'm just illustrating that when you go and just face it, you change. And when you change, that fear it's gone. And then it becomes something that becomes a part of you. And then you take those experiences and you apply them to other experiences. Mm-hmm. And in a little bit in the broadcast, I want to get into the ayahuasca experiences, because those experiences are scary. And this is why when this young lady posted, I have a fear of bugs, are there going to be any bugs at the ayahuasca ceremonies in the Amazon? I was really apprehensive with my answers, because if you go in with a fear, that fear is going to manifest in the ayahuasca realm. And it's going to manifest in a way to where it's going to cause a really terrible situation unless you are prepared to face down that fear. You have a fear of bugs, so expect bugs to be in the ayahuasca experience. Expect to see them. See them. Embrace them. Whatever it is. They did a study in DMT, the spirit molecule. A friend of ours did it, Mitch Schultz, and he's the producer. And they actually showed that in the ayahuasca experience, it actually reroutes neural pathways in the brain. Mm-hmm. So if you get bit by a dog and you're scared of dog barking, your neural pathways have been pre-programmed to go to the fear. And the ayahuasca actually reprograms them for love. And so people come out afraid of dogs, embrace the dogs in the ayahuasca experience, and literally physically change the brain structure of the way that they respond to dogs.
That was actually an experience I had a few years into us using it, the plant, pretty regularly. I had this experience where I heard and started sensing a wolf. Actually, it was a big wolf, and I'd been bitten by a dog when I was 10, and it was a German Shepherd.
Can I stop for just one moment?
Yeah.
And we'll pick up on German Shepherd. I just want to point out in this scene right here, I literally had urine right at the edge of my phallus because I was so scared.
Really?
I was terrified. But look what I do.
Hell yes. That is my twin right there. That's my twin.
I'm overriding that.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I did in the experience too. despite the fact that I had been bitten by this dog when I was 10, and it was a traumatic experience. It was, I still have the scar from it. Instead I just went like this.
And look, okay, so right here,
embraced it.
You can see, I'm scared. I'm legitimately scared.
Yeah, you can tell.
I'm looking at an airplane, 16,000 feet in the air, looking at the ground.
Oh, like, oh shit.
Okay, but I'm changing everything about my mindset.
Uh-huh.
I'm removing that fight or flight response. I'm removing that fear. I'm putting a smile on my face. And even though the smile was fake, it helped to change the frequency. And I just said, fuck it, let's go.
Wow.
So I'm sorry, please continue with the dog.
No, that's the same principle applied in the physical and the spiritual. The physical being you jumping out of that plane and saying, you know what? Fuck it. I'm overriding that fear, and I'm turning this into an adventure and an experience of a lifetime. Similarly, you can do the same in the ayahuasca realm. And I'm speaking to, to this person that, you're writing to. You can do the exact same thing in the ayahuasca realm, where you not only surrender to the experience, but embrace the experience and say, to hell with any fight or flight, biological, biochemical knee-jerk response. Never mind that. Let's embrace the experience, and the reward for that is just so immense.
Let me show you one more fear moment here, because I'm completely transparent. We're in the subterranean chamber of the Great Pyramid, alone, just me and Cherie. If I would have gotten stuck somewhere, if I would have fallen down the bottomless pit, anything like that, I would have been stuck for days. They would have had to send rescue teams in there to try to get me out. There's one moment here that I don't mind sharing. I don't mind sharing what was actually said. Now, this tunnel wasn't on the map. That's what's important.
I don't know where that tunnel goes.
I don't know where that tunnel goes. I stopped the camera first, and I said, Cherie, I'm really scared to go in there. And she said, I'll go. And I was like, no, I'll go. But I have never seen this tunnel on the map before. I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking mummy. I'm thinking booby traps. I'm thinking, what if I get there and there's a pit somewhere that I wind up falling? I don't know what's there. But I was genuinely scared. But it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. How could I not do it? Mm-hmm. Now, I do have to say that having a camera on me and, being beyond the veil, that removed the fear. Because it's almost like, okay, internally, I was scared. Externally, I wasn't going to show that. I was going to show nothing but no fear to my tribe.
Externally, you had to,
And that's it.
The question is, do we want to find out?
Yeah. Do we want to find? Look at the look on my face. I'm like, do
I
we
can
want
totally
to find
see
out
that.
what's going on in there?
I never noticed that
It's beyond the
before.
veil.
That look in your eye.
Now, this is after 15 years of ayahuasca. So, I'm like, screw it. Let's go. Let's go. What's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to die.
That would be, you if well, see, the only thing about that is, I mean, we were there for a mission, and I knew that no matter, that's why I said I'll do it, because I knew that no matter what, we were gonna complete the mission that we were there to do, and nothing was gonna stop us from doing that.
That's true, but I
So-
just wanted to illustrate that fear is okay. It's okay. Everybody has fear.
Yeah.
The best of us have fear. Oh, here's another video here. We did an interview with Coast to Coast, and they invited us out to do to Boulder, Colorado, to stay at the Boulderado Hotel, and we were doing Beyond Belief, and I particularly asked for room 303, the haunted room, because I wanted to impress George. That's really what it came down to.
Yeah.
I wanted to impress George.
Essentially.
And so we stayed in the haunted room.
Yes, we did.
I'm trying to find the play button. The screen is a little bit... Oh, there's the play button there. And it is actually down this way. Oh. I found out that this place is actually haunted. So we specifically requested the haunted room because that's what we do. And it is actually down this way. Oh. And as you can see, it's very creepy.
This place was built in 1909, so it is over 100 years old.
New Year's Eve. 1909. We are in the... Oh, it's 304 actually. But trust me, internally, I was scared. Now, it's okay to be scared. That's what I'm saying. That's the message that I want to get out there. It's okay to be scared. But it's not okay to give in to the fear.
Right.
Because I was thinking, what's the worst that's going to happen? I die? That's the ultimate fear, is the fear of death, right?
Yeah.
You start to know yourself. You know yourself. You know who you are. You understand reincarnation. You understand that we're infinite. When you truly understand that, you realize you have nothing to fear. Infamous room 304, which is reputed to be haunted. And as you can see, everything is still the Victorian era, with a few modern upgrades like a flat screen TV. But it is a very nice room. So thank you very much, Coast to Coast. But we did have to get the upgraded room because we wanted to stay in the haunted room. Okay, so check out this parallel here. This is from the movie 1408. You remember that movie 1408 about the haunted hotel?
Yep.
Okay. I believe that the room 1408, the movie 1408 was based on the Boulderado Hotel.
I think it was
because it's
too.
set up exactly the same. Same decor, same Victorian style, same everything.
Agreed.
So here we are. Maybe we'll see some paranormal activity this evening. I don't know if we'll be able to capture it on film because we probably won't be leaving the film running that long. But we did it. We asked for the haunted room and we got it. So maybe we'll have something to speak with George about tomorrow besides what we're going to be talking to him about, which is, I don't know how much of it I can say because I know that the shows are pre-recorded and I don't want to spoil any. And I'm exclusive. So we have... So everything in the room was bolted down.
Was bolted to the floor.
The wall, the bed was bolted to the wall.
Uh-huh.
There's a grandfather clock.
A grandfather clock
which
that's...
I don't know why we don't have video of it. Like, I don't know
Immovable.
why we didn't pan to the
I thought we
grandfather
did.
clock. I thought we did too.
At the very
I know we took
beginning of it.
pictures, but the grandfather clock was bolted to the room.
Mm-hmm.
And we asked the maids why. And the reason is because the maids, like, you see this bed right here that's bolted to the wall?
Uh-huh.
The maids refused to go in there by themselves.
Right.
They will go in there 3 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And they will keep one door open.
Mm-hmm.
2 maids will go in, clean it, and get out. And because
That's right.
stuff moves around in that room, so they bolted literally everything. I can't believe we didn't get the grandfather clock.
That's crazy.
What did we do here in this section? I know you can't see it on the video, but what did we do in this section?
Oh, I don't remember. It was
You don't remember
so long. What did we do in this?
this
in
section?
this-
It was like a little dining section.
Oh, we do a Ouija board?
We did a Ouija board.
Oh my God. That
We
was
called
crazy.
to here. You can see it better here. We called to them.
Oh,
And we
I
said-
forgot we did the Ouija board.
Bring it. Internally, we're afraid. Externally, we're not afraid.
I forgot all about the Ouija board. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
It did not want to talk.
Oh, but
It kept doing the figure eight
it kept-
and saying goodbye.
and kept me up all night.
Yeah. The backstory to this is that a couple around the 1920s,
Around
during
the
the
Great
Depression, they went to this hotel, stayed in this room. They committed suicide in the room. The woman went to go take a bath. They had some poison, and the husband drank the poison and died in the bed. And the woman was taking a bath. Cherie decides she wants to go take a bath. So, and then we found out the story afterwards.
Right.
So I
Right,
lay
so
down.
this is what-
Yeah, I lay down in the bed. We're seeing shadows walking up and down the balcony. We're going out to the balcony. We hear these voices: jump, 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 jump. And we're looking at each other, and we're even standing
Like
over the balcony.
whispers.
It was these whispers: jump, jump. You want to jump? You want to jump?
It was like a white nightgown.
Yeah.
A
So-
woman in a white nightgown.
So I'm passed out. Cherie's up all night watching this shadow walk back and forth on this balcony, which nobody had access to.
and every once in a while, I'd see a shadow out of the corner of my eye. And I would try to, like, I don't know, snuggle up in bed and close my eyes, and I'd feel somebody at the end of the bed, and I'd go and I'd look, and there'd be like a shadow, and it would disappear. Did you tell him about the bathroom? When I opened the door to the bathroom, because I was going to take a bath, I opened the door to the bathroom, and I could swear somebody was in the bathtub
Yeah.
already. And for a split second, somebody was in the bathtub, and I couldn't even make out if it was a man or a woman or what, but it was a split second, and it scared me. I was like, oh, this place, it feels haunted, baby. It really does. But it didn't really get creepy until he went to sleep. And then, I'm sorry, please continue.
I went to sleep and she was up all night. And then we find out the next day the story behind the room and how the man slept. Well, he committed suicide. She didn't have enough poison. She goes down to the pharmacy to go try to buy more poison. They wouldn't give her more poison.
Uh-huh.
She winds up jumping off the balcony
Right.
and committing suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So we followed the pattern of
The husband and wife.
wife. I went down to the clerk's office the next day and I said, there was a lot of disturbances in our room and we couldn't sleep all night. There was shadows walking around and there was noises. Things were moving around. Right here, you see these doors? These doors were slamming by themselves. We'd be in bed and all of a sudden, boom, this door would slam shut.
Yeah, like the wind came in and hit it or something.
And the hotel clerk said, what room were you in? I said 304. They said, oh, we're very sorry about that. Let's comp you another night.
Uh-huh.
And I said, no, it's okay. It's okay. We asked for the haunted room on purpose. And
Well,
she
yeah.
goes, oh, okay.
Oh, okay, I'm
she
glad.
said, we usually don't put people in that room because of
For that reason,
of
yeah.
disturbances. And I said,
Yeah.
no, we wanted the disturbances.
Yeah.
So my point is, like, when there's fear, the best thing to do, in my opinion, is stare at it head on. And this is going to segue into the ayahuasca experiences. But that's all we can do in this reality is stare down our fears.
Right.
But when we stare down our fears and we come out, we have these amazing stories to tell. We strengthen ourselves, our consciousness. And in my humble opinion, this helped to override other fears in other places. I mean, before we went to the pyramid, I played a virtual reality game of walking through a pyramid, and it was scary. I was legitimately scared of walking around the pyramid by myself, but I said, I'm going to do this. And I'm playing this virtual reality video game, and I'm getting freaked out. And when we got to the pyramid, it was the same freak out, but there wasn't the external freak out. It was an internal freak out that was then dealt with internally, and the external body stayed completely and totally still. And we didn't allow the fight or flight response to kick in. We felt it. Everybody will feel it.
Yeah.
No matter how seasoned you are, you will feel the fight or flight response.
But you can override
But you can override it. And that's the point.
Overriding that fight or flight response is just a matter of it's almost like being a computer programmer and you're trying to program your mind, reprogram your mind to override that fight or flight response. And when you can get to that point, it turns life into an adventure, like I said.
Can you keep going for just a second?
Yeah, definitely. And I think another part of this is the battle that goes on internally when it comes to drinking ayahuasca and partaking in the ceremony itself. Sometimes we externalize our fears, and instead of seeing things that are going on inside of our consciousness that we'd rather not look at, and we'd rather not deal with, and we'd rather not even appreciate in terms of recognizing that it even exists. And there were a lot of things that I didn't realize were still in my consciousness until I drank ayahuasca, and then it came up in these experiences. And then I realized afterwards that subconsciously, part of the reason why I resisted drinking ayahuasca sometimes, sometimes there's been times where I've been like, I don't really want to tonight, let's do it next week, sometimes it's because there's things that, you're not wanting to look at that are going on in the consciousness realm of things. And so instead of seeing it like that, subconsciously it kind of turns into bugs or something about the place that you're going to, or the environment in which you're going to be using it, or something's wrong about something that you ate the night before.
Well,
something like that.
It's funny you mention that, and this is actually what I was doing while I was sidetracked. I hope our Patreons don't mind us sharing this, but I was actually answering a question that was left on our Patreon channel, and Consciousness DNA said, I'm so thankful I found you too many years ago. I had just come back from Costa Rica after going to an Americanized ayahuasca retreat. Something felt wrong down there, and you explained it so well. Everything you talk about resonates to this day. Blessed to have you in our corner. Thank you for being you. And I wanted to respond to that, because we don't respond to too many Patreon messages, just because of lack of time.
There's just so many of them.
But there's so many people coming back from these ayahuasca retreats down in Peru and the Amazon and other places like that, reporting horrible experiences.
Yeah.
And in my humble opinion, bugs are not what you have to worry about.
No.
What do you call them? Brujeros?
Brujeros.
Brujeros.
Yeah. Are what?
Brujeros are what you really have to worry about down in the Amazon.
Yeah.
Because there are predators down there posing as shaman. There's gringos down there who go down there, open up ayahuasca retreats.
Yeah.
There was one that I just got into with who was doing an all-female ayahuasca ceremony, and I called him out on it. And he's like, why would you come to that conclusion? The proper answer would have been, the women are completely safe and secure. My wife is facilitating the ceremony, and I'm just holding the space. I respect that.
Yeah, that
You're
would
the
have been
real deal.
right.
But instead, he's like, why would you think anything like that? Why would you think I would do anything like that to these women in this sacred state that they're in? And I'm like, because
you're a
it's
man?
happened many, many, many times before. I don't want to harp on about that anymore, but that's why we coined hashtag become your own shaman.
Mm-hmm.
But there, unfortunately, are not people out there who are ready to become their own shaman. But we're having a lot of BTV tribe who are responding with, I'm so glad I met you guys. I'm so glad I learned how to brew my own ayahuasca. I'm so glad how I learned how to have these experiences by myself, because they're totally different when I'm having them by myself versus when I'm having them in a ceremony.
You get a lot more out of
the
it.
Amazon is probably a beautiful place, but I was watching a documentary about a guy going and trying to find real ayahuasca, and he couldn't find it. He wound up finding combo. Which is that frog venom.
Frog venom, yeah.
And he had to go 2 weeks on a boat down the Amazon to find it.
Just to find that.
But you've got
yeah.
all these ayahuasca retreats that they've opened up down there, which are either vampiric in the sense of taking your money, or vampiric in the sense of taking your energy.
Yeah,
or even
something.
worse. You know, there's report after report after report of women being raped down there.
Sexual assault, yeah.
Because those brujeros will put scopolamine in their brew. And scopolamine is like a date rape kind of drug.
Yeah, that's
you don't
nature's
remember
roofies.
the last couple of hours.
Yeah.
And so it's a recipe for disaster. Dennis McKenna was sharing with us on our show that he went down there and he drank some of their brew, and he's like, this has scopolamine in it. You know, he was such a seasoned psychonaut that he was able to recognize it. So, you know, when somebody says, I have a fear of bugs, are there any bugs down in the Amazon? It's like, you know, there's a lot more to it than just a fear of bugs, because you have to be on guard. You have to be in control of your consciousness. You can't rely on strangers. Now, there could be some great ayahuasca retreats down there. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, there's nothing greater than becoming your own shaman, working one-on-one with the plants, and obtaining the gnosis from the plants without any outside influences.
Yeah, no middlemen.
Who do you trust? Do you trust some guy you've never met in the Amazon? Or do you trust your husband? Do you trust your brother? Do you trust your best friend?
Right.
And this is, you know, in my opinion, what there should be not fear but apprehension over. But the thing is, though, in the ayahuasca experiences, these fears are going to manifest in the ayahuasca experiences. So you have to, first of all, have the ability to face them down head on in the physical space. You've got to be able to conquer the fear of bugs, for example, in the physical space. Because if not, those are going to manifest in the ayahuasca realm.
Yeah.
And then you're freaking out. And especially if you have a brujero down there that sees that,
he'll take advantage of it.
sweetheart, come over here. Let me help you with all this. Oh, I'll help you decompress. Here, take your shirt off. Take this off.
I'm gonna wipe the bugs off of
Wipe the
you.
bugs off of you, et cetera, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. And it turns into stuff like that.
Right.
And so, I mean, we are very seasoned, and we were invited to go down to one because they wanted us to sign off on it as it being a good, you know, ayahuasca retreat.
Yeah, they want us to give a review. And
But I don't know anything about their brew. And I don't know how they brew. I don't know anything like that. And they very well could have been great people, because Dennis McKenna went down there, Edie Frex, Rick Strassman. A lot of our friends went down there.
Yeah, we're not
So it's
saying all of them are bad.
It's probably a great retreat. But at the same time, you've got to go down there with a level head, because ayahuasca is going to bring out what's inside of you. And if you're having problems processing just reality as it is, you're going to have even more problems processing the ayahuasca stage. Remember, we had callers calling in at the very beginning when we started talking about this openly, and they were saying, oh, I had a horrible experience. I ate mushrooms, and then I woke up in the middle of the road. I was all bruised up, and I had
I remember that.
I had paramedics around me. Okay, what was your mental state beforehand? Because I can show you a million people that take mushrooms and don't wind up bruised up, bleeding in an ambulance after the fact.
Yeah.
It's all about, do you have control of your consciousness
mentality
before you step into these realms? And even though we coined hashtag become your own shaman, we have a recipe to make your own ayahuasca and do all of that. I became kind of apprehensive because, number one, we got 2 bad emails about, oh my God, the ayahuasca guy, that's horrible, this and that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And after we talked to the people a little bit, oh yeah, I was taking this antidepressant. Well, it says very clearly, don't take any antidepressants. You didn't follow the guide. Of course, you're going to have a bad time. One person we gave ayahuasca to personally lied to us and said that he wasn't taking anything. Him and his wife were taking Suboxone. You make Suboxone with an MAOI, and you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, that doesn't go to fear. In my opinion, what that does is that goes to wisdom and knowledge and being honest with yourself.
And honesty with yourself.
And being honest with where you are consciously. And ego. Let go of that ego.
Yeah.
With all due respect, and I don't know if the young lady is still listening or not, but with all due respect, if somebody with 25 years of experience is giving you the tools to overcome your fears, and your response is, that's not how fear works, well then that's something to consider, because yeah, that is how fear works, in my humble opinion. I'm not going to tell you what it is for your journey, but I'll tell you this. The fear of bugs, for example, I think it's great advice. Why are you afraid of the bugs? Put things in perspective. You are 1,000 times larger than this bug is. You can squash it if you want. Why are you afraid of it? What's the cause of that? Figure that out first, then go into the ayahuasca realm. Because once you go into the ayahuasca realm, those fears are going to be in your consciousness before you go in. So the first thing that manifests is going to be bugs.
Right.
Because there is a very real thing called astral parasites. And I've seen them. I have taken them off myself. I've taken them off other people. I've got videos talking about astral parasites. They're not anything to be afraid of. All they do is they cling onto your light body and they suck your energy. That's it. They cannot hurt you. They can suck your energy, but they cannot hurt you. But they're very real. Now imagine somebody goes in with a fear of bugs, all of a sudden sees astral parasites all over themselves, which look like bugs. They look like these little sluggish, like little things, and they're stuck all over the light body. That person is going to freak out immediately unless they're expecting it. And if they're expecting it and they're able to face it down and they know, then they're going to have a good experience because they're going to be able to then overcome it.
Right, exactly. Once you realize that what you're afraid of is simply an externalized version of what you already have going on inside of you on a consciousness level, then whenever that's the first thing you see, you can deal with it and once you deal with something on ayahuasca, the reward is so amazing. It's incredible. It's almost like you level up in so many ways. It's beautiful. You start to transform into something bigger and better than who you were before. Once you're able to overcome that fear in the ayahuasca realm.
That is very true. I knew somebody who didn't go through any of the deprogramming processes of ayahuasca and just jumped right into it. Immediately after 2 or 3 ayahuasca experiences, thought he was a shaman, started giving ayahuasca to people, having girls come over to his house, having sex with them, things like that, doing everything that a brujero would do. He was also consequently taking a lot of the stuff from Beyond the Veil that we were talking about, and then claiming that he saw them in his visions. He was reading a lot of David Wilcock, so he was in contact with bluebirds. He was in contact with Palladians. He was in contact with a lot of these things that have been made up. And just for anybody that hasn't heard the backstory, George Kavassilas told me before the Bluebird thing came out, the Blue Avians with David Wilcock, that Gaia TV is planning some new little scheme revolving around Blue Avians, and George was asked to be the spokesperson. George was supposed to be Corey Good, but George turned it down because he said, "No way, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to jeopardize my integrity by going out and just parroting all this." They promised him book deals, they promised him speaking deals, they promised him all of that. I mean, look at how big Gaia TV is. You know, Corey Good was on every single radio show. He was selling books. He was, making money. And then David Wilcock got into a dispute with Gaia TV. All those emails came out about not getting enough money. And then they started throwing Corey Good under the bus, saying that Corey Good was making everything up, when in actual fact it was David Wilcock and everybody else that was all a part of it, because I was told about this at the very beginning. So this guy, when he started seeing all these bluebirds and everything like that, I knew what was happening is he was absorbing information, then manifesting it in the ayahuasca realm.
Right.
And so likewise, whatever is in your consciousness is going to manifest in the ayahuasca realm.
In front of you.
And that's what the experience, that's where the experience comes in, is when you can discern what is a manifestation of your consciousness, and likewise, what is actual gnosis coming from within. However, your traumas, especially, as this young lady mentioned, she said, how do you know this isn't trauma-based? And I said, well, I'm actually going to touch upon that on the show, because it most likely is trauma-based. But that's the thing. If you have a trauma that you're not willing to deal with in the physical, and you take that into the ayahuasca realm, it's going to manifest. And see, the problem with this guy is that he didn't go through any of the decompression. He didn't go through any of the deprogramming. He didn't go through any of the ego, just the ego death and rebuilding a healthy ego. So every time he had ayahuasca experiences, he was constantly attacked by demons. Over and over and over again. And that's all he would talk about, is being attacked by demons. Oh, I was attacked by this demon and that demon and this demon and that demon. And what that is, those are your traumas manifesting themselves, saying, hey, you need to deal with this. A trauma isn't going to manifest as, your trauma. A trauma is going to manifest as a demon. And it's going to look like a demon, because these are your demons. I mean, it's allegorical and metaphysical at the same time. Demons don't exist outside, they exist within us. So you go into the ayahuasca space and you start seeing demons and you have a horrible experience. But those demons are your trauma. This is why it's important to overcome that fear. Because in order to deal with those demons, you have to first of all stare them down, understand who you are, number two, understand that they can't hurt you. There is some vision there that looks scary, a giant bug right there in front of you, or bugs all over you, or whatever the case may be. But they can't hurt you. And that's what you have to realize. And once you realize that, then you can take it to the next level and you can say, okay, I recognize what you are. I understand that you can't hurt me. I understand there's nothing you can do to me. I can do something to you, though. I can start removing those astral parasites, or I can start looking beyond you. And that's the thing. I've stared down quote unquote demons. And once I stare them down and I look at them and I say, I am not afraid of you, and I truly mean it, poof, they disappear. And on the other side lays great gnosis and revelations about self. But what I called it security systems. Like the security systems, you go into the ayahuasca realm, you want to get to those next levels. The security systems are like these demon-esque type of beings that those who can't stare them down don't go any further. Those who can stare them down then get the knowledge on the other side. It's like a test. Are you ready to move up to the next level? Are you ready to deal with your traumas? Are you ready to deal with all this? If so, stare it down. If not, look away. But worst case, though, what I was thinking as I was interacting with this young lady is I was thinking, she's going to take this fear in with her, which seems like a very small fear. But trust me, when it manifests in the ayahuasca realm, it's going to be intense. And then I can picture this young lady, with all due respect, running around that retreat. Oh my God, I have bugs all over me. I have bugs all over me. Interfering with other people's experiences,
Right.
And taking the attention away from the person that's giving the ayahuasca, and having to have special treatment, special service, all that, et cetera,
Exactly.
to try to bring them back down from that experience and help them understand, look, what you're looking at is your traumas, and they're manifesting as your fears.
Right.
But at some point, you come out like this. The look you get when you no longer fear demons, but demons fear you. And that is the point that I'd like to see people get to.
Me too.
But the first and foremost thing is to be able to face them down. It's so important to face them down. Understand your true divinity. Understand your power. And it's a process. I'm not expecting anybody to do this right off the bat. But if I can give you some advanced gnosis, get rid of all your dogmas. Get rid of all your dogmas.
Yeah.
I can only imagine a Christian going and drinking ayahuasca and they see Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine. They see Jesus. But what about when they see Satan?
Right.
What happens then?
What about when, they get reminded of a sin they've committed, and the fact that they haven't repented for it yet, and oh my gosh, that means they're going to go to hell, and then suddenly they're in this hellscape, that's what the kind of thing you manifest whenever you have that those fears and guilts and things going on that you're not dealing with in the correct way. So
Bit of venom. Why should you fear demons? They're just little annoying ankle biters.
they're those little ankle biters.
Exactly.
To us, they are. Yeah, they're just annoyances.
Exactly. But these are the next levels. The beginning levels, though, I understand they're very difficult.
Yeah.
They are. So, kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be, and we'll see you even further.
Beyond the veil.
Love you.
Love you guys.
Hey everyone, Chris Gio here. Just wanted to remind you that if you're watching on YouTube, you're probably getting a condensed version of the show. A link is going to pop up here on the left, taking you straight to patreon.com/BTB Tribe, where you can get the full shows. It's as little as $3 a month. And the reason is it helps us to overcome the YouTube censorship, the shadow banning, and also stay in touch with our BTB Tribe. See you there at Patreon. Love ya.